And just speaking of Mauritius, let's pick up on that point. 0.7% increase on the week before, and in fact, basically the second best performing bourse that we've seen in Africa overall last week. We've also seen deflation looking slightly better for the month of March.
I mean, inflation eased a little bit to 5.9% for March, so that's decent to see. I mean, they've had a hell of a lot of problems of late because of their currencies. So currency kind of finding a level against the US dollar of 29-ish, so that's pleasing to see. What we've seen a lot of action in of late is the banking stocks, Mauritius Commercial Bank and State Bank Mauritius. There's been a lot of foreigners coming into the market and showing interest in especially the likes of Mauritius Commercial Bank, so that's good to see, yeah.
Would you say this we could actually see a lot of positivity coming through for Mauritius for the whole year? Because one of the bourses that have actually seen quite a bit of positivity since the begining of the year.
It has. It came under a lot of pressure, well, at the end of last year, beginning of this year, because of inflationary pressures and because of the weakness of the rupee. So it could be a bit of value picking down here, but we are seeing, like I mentioned, a lot of...
What about the hotel stocks? Because we've actually seen that the Eurozone crisis is actually affecting a lot of tourism into the country, and we've actually seen those hotel stocks moving in tandem with the negativity that we see coming through from Europe.
Correct. I think that's going to play out along with Mauritius as well, as tourism gets a bit better or a bit worse. It will lag the banking stocks a bit, though, I'm afraid.
Kenya, the best performing bourse for last week, up 1.6%. Blue chip stocks seem to be the ones that are of course focused on quite predominantly. We're talking about the fuel price a little earlier with my previous guest. That seems to be one of the negatives.
Correct. That unfortunately that only came over the weekend that there was announced an increase in the fuel price. So over the last few weeks we've seen a lot of once again a lot of foreign participation in the market. They've been net buyers for the last, I'd say, month or two. And now all of a sudden we're seeing large local institutional funds returning to the market on both sides of the market. So I think that's a factor of foreigners showing interest in the Kenyan market. But like you mentioned, your blue chips, Safaricom, Equity Bank, Kenya Commercial Banks are all doing relatively well in this environment.
Malawi also posting quite a nice gain for last week, up 0.7%. And again, we're seeing a mixture coming through with regards to what we see on the political front and of course the feeding through into equities.
Well, correct. I mean, there's a new president after the death of the previous president. There was driven by only a few names, namely National Bank of Malawi and National Investment Trust. Speculation that one of National Investment Trust's big holdings, Ilova, is going to produce decent results as a result of the recent high sugar price. So nothing substantial there. Standard Bank paid recently a decent dividend of 9.43 kwacha, so that's also quite good. Economically and politically, we'll see how the new president goes.
Tunisia up 0.6% last week, and an increase in tourism numbers also coming through. Is this a market that you would be looking at to invest in? Of course, very light liquidity.
Well, yeah, that's one thing you've got to bear in mind. I mean, a lot of people, when you're looking at North Africa, tend to focus on Egypt. So Tunisia takes a bit of a back seat. There were some rumours during the rounds of gift filters last week that they found a financial partner, international financial partner at least. So I'd look at Egypt first, then Tunisia after if you've got some spare cash.
A bit of worry coming through for the Moroccan market because that's down almost 4% last week, the worst performing bourse. We're seeing a lot of offshore funds actually offloading Moroccan equities. Is this a sign of risk aversion or a risk aversion towards Morocco itself?
I don't think I'd really call it risk aversion towards Morocco. Last year when Egypt and Tunisia came under a bit of pressure, Morocco did very well in the North African region. So year to date it's down 6.7%, but you're bearing in mind that last year it actually did relatively well too. So I think it could be people taking a bit of money out of Morocco, looking at Egypt and Tunisia, which is starting to look a bit better.
Nigeria is down 0.9%. This is a market that we watch quite closely, and we've actually seen more interest within the fixed income space and obviously the bond market because of the very high yields, and not so much within the equity space. Dull week last week. Is anything going to change? What are you expecting there?
Look, I mean, it started off very, very quietly today, so that's an ominous sign for the week, I guess. The lack of any news is the fact that it was so dull last week, I think. I mean, there weren't any big blue chip names reporting financials. We saw Skybank report today, so hopefully that can kick things off from a news point of view. But unless something decent gets reported in the market, I don't see turnover increasing too much.
So nothing too dramatic this week either.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much, Neil. We have to leave it there. Of course, that was Neil Barnard, sales trader from Securities Africa.